As we saw already, the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke this week at a joint session. And yesterday, he met with both President Biden and Vice President Harris. And of course, today he's meeting with former President Trump. But according to reports, both the Democratic leaders pushed for a ceasefire in Gaza. As I mentioned, today, the Prime Minister is meeting with former President Trump. I wonder if that same message is going to be relayed there. Well, certainly we'll be finding out more about it. But as the tour throughout, if you will, the U.S. continues with the Prime Minister, what should we expect? I mean, the response he received at the joint session was remarkable. Over 50 standing ovations. I've talked to some who said they were literally tired after that speech, standing up and down, up and down. And yet at the same time, there were protests taking place at Union Station right down the street from the Capitol in Washington, D.C. So what can we draw from what we witnessed this week? Joining me now to discuss this is Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett. He serves on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, as well as the Oversight and Accountability Committee. He represents the great state of Tennessee, the 2nd Congressional District there. Congressman Burchett, always great to see you.
Great seeing you, Jody. Thank you so much for having me on. And I voted today. I hope all of our good Christians out there remember they better get out and vote because we didn't.
Well, good. Time. That's a great way to start.
Yeah, 20
we always say.
Yeah.
That's right. And we got to pray, we got to vote, we got to stand. And thank you for bringing that to our attention afresh. For those of you in Tennessee, it's time to go get the job done today. All right, Congressman, if I can, let's jump into this. After her meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, Vice President Harris ran to the news, the cameras almost immediately, saying that she hears everyone, she sees everyone who has been calling on a ceasefire and that she's not going to be silent. It just, I don't know, it smells like nothing but a campaign to me. Is her campaign for president clouding the work and our ally, Israel, in the Middle East?
Well, your radar is dead right, Jody. It's very clear to me of what's going on with her. You know, you've got these protesters, and the number of protesters that showed up was greatly overestimated, but they were allowed to do a lot of damage, painting things, and as you saw, taking down the American flag and putting up Hamas flags and things like that. And so it was just awful. And that's who she's appealing to. That is her base. And then she'll meet with Netanyahu and play nice. And then when she gets out in public, she'll play nice, but behind closed doors, she is not a friend of Israel's. And I would be very cautious of anything she says or does, because that's all she's concerned about is the campaign.
Let me just interject this real quickly, because it's right there in line with what you said. But according to Israeli officials, her public remarks were much more negative than what she said to the prime minister in private. So she's like going into him saying one thing, sweet this, sweet that. And then she goes out in public, and it's quite a different message. She seems to be pointing the finger at Israel publicly for what's happening in Gaza.
Yeah, and this talk of ceasefire, there'd be a ceasefire right now if Hamas would put down their arms. If they had not come across the border and violated that treaty, none of this would be going on right now. Make no mistake about it. They brought it on. And another thing is, people need to realize we're funding both sides of this thing, folks. We sent $6 billion into Hamas, that crazy peer, so Biden could mix his words and say no American boots are on the ground in Gaza. And, no official American boots are, but you know as well as I do, there are Americans on the ground in there, and they are operating. And this thing is, I keep saying, we better let Israel do their business, because this is not our war. We do not know how to fight by that. And just like in Afghanistan, 13 brave Americans lost because of our stupid rules of engagement, when we, in fact, had that suicide bomber in our sights, not once, but twice. I asked the Marine Corps sniper that. And that's why Netanyahu has said that. But I thought it was very bold of him and correct to say, in fact, that, these protesters out here are, they ought to be ashamed of themselves. And I guarantee you a lot of them aren't even American citizens. And I guarantee you that a lot of them don't even know why they're there, and they're paid to be there by some billionaires that are supporting the Democratic Party. So I think folks better dig into this a little more.
Absolutely. And another strong point that he made, and the one that you referenced, I agree, I thought it was terrific. But he also said specifically to the United States that the faster that they receive military aid, the faster they can finish the job. Your reaction to that statement?
Well, that's accurate. And he also noted in his statement that they would continue to work together. Trump has talked about an Iron Dome over America, which I don't know if I'm sure it's feasible. I don't know at what cost, but I do know in some of our more vulnerable areas and some of our major cities that would be more suitable to a terrorist type attack, like a missile attack, that we would, in fact, be partners in that, as we are in their Iron Dome. As you know, I mean, he told me, he said, Tim, he said, with your, if they shoot a missile at us, we blow it up with your help. He told me that when I visited Israel, and Netanyahu did. So there's a lot of messages in that. And you're right. I think I cramped up just from standing up and applauding, and my hands were numb. Towards the end, I just tapped the desk in front of me, or the Congressman Luna was there, and she's like, "What are you doing, Burchett?" And I said, my hands are tired, Luna. I'm just going to slap the back of this chair right here. But
I saw you. I actually saw the two of you there. You made me chuckle.
One other thing before I forget, Speaker Pelosi. Everybody ought to go back and read her tweet. She called that the worst speech I believe that had ever been said on that floor. And it was funny. Her former number two, whose name escapes me, who was her number two behind her when she was Speaker? Well, anyway, he was on right now. Yeah, he was on the floor yesterday praising Netanyahu and condemning the terrorists. And I thought that was an interesting, Pelosi trying to appeal to that San Francisco vote she's got, which is so radical they've lost their minds. And I would hope some of the folks that favor the Israeli community and the business community would take note of what's happened to their Democrat Party. They have completely been subverted and ambushed by the far left, and they are no friend to Israel.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. We've got less than a minute left, but there's a lot of discussion as to whether or not Vice President Harris was the border czar. Your thoughts on that real quickly?
Yeah, all they're doing is throwing Biden under the bus over a terrible border policy and a terrible border operation. She was at NBC, CBS, CNN. She was in charge of it. There's no question. It's just you tell a lie often enough and people start to believe it. And you saw they all got the notes. Ducey yesterday at the press conference in the White House told whatever the girl's name is, that as the press secretary, told her, said, "What's this sheet of paper? Everybody seems to have one." And it was orders from the Democrat Party, from the hierarchy. It's just, when their overlords call, they're like Pavlov's dog. They just start salivating. And that's what happened. And it shows you the deep state is real. And I'll tell you what, you 20 million Christians who decided not to vote last time because of a mean tweet, y'all better get off your butt. You better vote, because we are going to lose our country. We will lose it, sure as the world.
Congressman Tim Burchett, always great to have you. Have a fantastic weekend.